Welcome to the Interrogation True Crime Stories podcast. All the stories told on this show are either fabricated, alleged, or didn't happen at all and shouldn't be used in the court of law. We hope. Cool. Welcome to the Interrogation True Crime Stories podcast. I'm your host, Corey David. Today we have a special guest, Katherine Blanford. How you doing, girl?
Just peachy.
Yeah, just
wonderful.
Lovely.
Well, yeah, thriving.
Yeah, you said you were coming right from the gym, so we got you in all your natural glory.
Yeah, natural stank.
Yeah.
I love how I honestly just had an excuse for how I look, because honestly, I wasn't gonna put any makeup on anyways.
Some people, like, I had somebody get real salty with me one time for not telling them that it was on camera. I'm like, what year is it? Like, we've been doing podcasts for how long? I think most people would assume that it's video.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not going to hear someone's opinion without looking them in the eye on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. We're a subtitle generation now.
Yeah, I just, I haven't grown up yet, and I don't know if I ever will. I
can tell by your headphones.
I know. Oh, my headphones from Claire's, from Spencer's Gifts.
Exactly.
Yeah, if there's a color option, I'm gonna choose the most heinous color option. Headphones, suitcase, and like anything. Like, I'm not going black gray.
Something shiny pink. It looks like you got a free ear piercing with those if you went to Claire's. That's a good call.
Yeah, you actually get a free disease. You get a free viral disease in your earlobe with every piercing. Yeah, it's a BOGO.
Well, I'm glad you're on the show, because we met briefly when I was in Atlanta a few months ago, and then you did a little run through Denver, probably January, something like that.
Yeah, I still talk about that weekend.
Yeah, what about it in particular? Because you did the theater at Denver Comedy Underground, right? Like, they moved it up to the big room.
See, I love how everyone calls it the big room.
Yeah.
Because it's a church. I love how nobody just calls it the church.
Exactly. Yeah.
Everyone calls it the big room. But if you're in the big room, you're on an altar. Like, there's no way around it. Like, there's no way of being like, no, this is a performance space. It's a church. There's literally like rows of pews, an altar, like the podium where the big guy talks, and there's a crucifix behind it, right?
I guess I hadn't noticed. Like, I haven't actually been to a show in the church part yet, so because they only do that on occasion when you sell a lot of tickets and a lot of people come to see you. How did that feel, like doing it in like a church then? Like, how did that feel with a crucifix behind you?
Dude, my ego grew 3 sizes too big. I was like, oh, I sold more tickets than Jesus Christ.
That's true.
It was so fun. I mean, Catholic kid growing up, like Catholic school, like we went to church on Thursdays every week, like, and then also on Sundays. So I was in that church. And so it was fun to like go back up, and do stand up, because when I was growing up, sometimes you'd have to read. Like, you have to read the first reading or whatever. They'd always have a student do it during school church. And you'd have to do it in front of your whole school. And every time it was my turn, something messed up. Like, one time I was so scared to get the page of the Bible wrong.
Okay.
That I had just printed out the verses, right? Like, and then glued them to a construction paper.
Little cheat sheet.
Right. And when I pulled the paper out, I think it fell through something. It was gone when I pulled it. I mean, I'm in front of my entire school, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I just opened up the Bible and read a random verse.
I love the confidence.
I was just like, well, we're improvising today, Father Mickey.
Only thing I would have done that gives you more respect would be if you just like made up your own Bible verse on the spot. Like, nobody would know. Like, how many people in that room have the entire Bible memorized?
Right.
Just go for it.
Yeah. I should have. I should be like, you think it's cool if Jesus walks on water?
Yeah.
What if he did a handstand on water? And this is my verse. So needless to say, every time I've been up on the preacher stand at church, I had bombed before then. And I would say that this one wasn't a bomb. I think this was really well.
Well, I heard it went really great.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, because you've been touring all over the place, and one of the things we kind of talked about when I ran into you is like, you seem like you've been all over. Like you're doing tons of one-nighters in all these like really cool places, and at some of the best clubs in the country. Like, did that all kind of seem to come together a little bit more after the late night set? Which, congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Yep.
I guess I think it definitely was the late night set. My last year was insane. It was, I don't think that this was the normal trajectory for most people, but it all happened very fast, and so fast I'm not really sure it even happened. I think it was January when Kyle from Don't Tell Comedy DM'd me and asked if I could do a set, and I had seen some of my friends' sets, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool exposure. Sure. I almost didn't do it because I was supposed to go to a friend's wedding then.
Comedy wins every time.
Right? Yeah, I know. I know I messed up. This is another lesson I learned last year is not everything's a podcast. Okay, sure. Catherine, be careful what you say depending on who you're saying it to.
It's hard to turn it off, dude. It's hard to turn it off sometimes. Right. You have to have a little reminder every once in a while. You're like, oh, these are normal people. Yeah,
because I was interviewed by the LA Times because whatever, my Don't Tell set had popped off, right? And they're like, sure. they're doing an article about Don't Tell Comedy, and they wanted to interview me. And I said in the article, I go, Kyle asked me to do a set, and I said, yes, I love any excuse to get out of going to a wedding. Of course, they printed that, and then the bride reaches out to me. She's like, hey, read your cute little LA Times article.
You could have just sent us $50 and said you didn't want to come.
Right. Instead of dissing us in the LA Times.
National publication.
Congratulations.
Did you name them too? Did you be like...
Thank God. Anyways, had a set, right? Did a Don't Tell Comedy. My clips kind of like popped off. And at the same time, I was putting out like a half-hour album, and like, so it was kind of worked out perfect timing. Like a lot of that stuff popped off, and then like I had management reach out to me and started booking road gigs. I was still nannying.
Oh, okay.
Full-time nannying when I got the call that I got the Tonight Show. Like I was like getting hollered at by a 4-year-old because I poured coconut milk instead of almond milk.
And you just want to shove the phone in their face and be like, do you have any idea? My life is about to change. I never have to see you again.
Right. I'm like, this is what I'm going to be saying backstage.
Just drop a baby.
Yeah. 30 Rockefeller. Like, I said almond milk. Yeah. So it was, like I said, wild year. I started opening for Spade, like around the country too. And then, it was like kind of after the Tonight Show and all these clips popped off, it's just boomed. After that, I started doing like booking a lot of one-nighters in clubs, like I call it like your internship phase where you're like, oh, okay, this is a new up and coming comic who we'll see if she can sell tickets. We'll see if she can do an hour. So they give you the Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursday spots at the club. So I was doing like, I still am, but I'm in a different city. I could be 3 nights a week in a different city, in a different state.
It's wild. Like, cause I follow you on social media and stuff. And it seems like every day it's just in a new spot, but it's always at like the premier place in town or whatever it is. It's like it's a place you want to be at, but you're like,
for sure.
Move.
Yeah, for sure. I slowly realized that like your first year when you first start doing clubs that they are like, well, we'll see if you got the chops. And then once you do well on those one-nighters, then you start picking up the weekend gigs and you're there Thursday through Sunday, some kind of combination of that. So now I'm kind of transitioning into the weekends. So it's been wild. I definitely have learned, this learning period for me was my first time trying to build a new hour on the road. Because when I started going on the road, I put out like the half hour I kind of had written, and then I written new material. I did all that on Don't Tell. And then the other material I wrote, I did on Fallon. So I'm like, these people that are paying to see, I recognize when I say these people, I do mean 12 in each city.
It counts for something, you know? Right. At least you got those, you know?
Right. I mean, by no means.
I was going to say, give yourself a little credit. Let's go.
Sure. But I just recognize that they have seen everything I pretty much have written at that point. I'd put online, so they could have seen everything. So it was like that kind of pressure to be like, okay, well, they're paying to see you. Mm-hmm. You know, you're going to have to start writing rapidly to give them a show that they haven't already seen.
Which is kind of a weird place to be in, because if you are kind of doing in that audition still phase, internship phase with these clubs, but yet you're trying to come up with a new hour, that's a lot of pressure. Because I mean, when you're doing the audition thing, you want to just go out with the bangers, you know, the stuff that you know works really well. To be doing that at the same time seems like it would be stressful.
Yeah, it was. And I learned I put a lot of pressure on myself, because you talk to veterans and they'd be like, the audience doesn't care. You're thinking too highly of yourself. And they don't. I learned after a while, like I pretty much, I almost have like a completely new hour I'm super happy with. But after the show, people come up and be like, I brought my friend. I wanted them to see this bit or this bit, you know, that you've done. And they don't all sound like that either. But
it's mostly bros coming to the show.
Yeah,
I don't want to hear that joke.
Yeah, and they just swallowed a sock, so they're all talking like this. But yeah, so I put too much pressure on myself in the beginning, but I'm happy I did, because I think I learned a lot quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would imagine so. Yeah, when you kind of get thrust into that, it seems like you don't really have a choice, right? Like you kind of got to learn, or you just wound up drowning. So, actually, one question I did want to ask you was, who comes up with all your poster art that you do for all the random gigs?
Oh, a man named Mickey Cox.
They're so good.
He's amazing. He's the best. He's a Georgia boy too. I think he's in Tennessee though, and sometimes I'll have an idea and he'll have an idea and we collab, but he's so good. I'll have like a vague idea of something, like, oh, I'm going to Washington. What about a lumberjack thing? And then he comes up with something far beyond my expectations. Yeah. And I think he does posters for Jesse Curson and Krista Stefano and some other comics too. He's great. If anybody needs flyer designs, he's the guy to go to. Reach out to him.
They're really funny, and I'm always so impressed with how quickly they turn around. I'm like, man, I feel like she's got a new one for like every spot that she's at. Whether it's like, for anybody that hasn't seen it, it's mostly your face like superimposed on some like other character in some weird setting or whatever. It's hilarious. And I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's my way of keeping people around, because you feel like after a while you're like, okay, all I'm doing is self-promotion, you know, especially when you're doing one-nighters, because it's not like one show a week you promote. You're not like, I'm in Detroit this week. It's like, I'm in 4 different cities that I have to advertise in 1 week. So that was my way of being like, okay, at least if they're entertaining enough, people won't get sick of it.
Agreed. I'm not. So if you need any validation on that front, you've at least got one fan.
Yeah, good to know it's working.
Great. All right, well, let's get into some dumb crimes that I found on the internet today. You good to go?
Yeah.
Sweet. All right, so headline for this one is naked Georgia man spotted driving ambulance, arrested for DUI. Any first?
Yeah, sorry about that. I just got back from the gym and my clothes were all sweaty and I got in the wrong van. I'm sorry. I accidentally drove an ambulance. Where was it? Naked ambulance man. What was the rest of it?
It was in Georgia.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, let me see, Bibb County.
I have never heard of Bibb County.
Well, apparently they have one ambulance. So when it gets stolen, people know. It's not like, oh, there's so many ambulances, nobody's gonna notice. I hope he turned the siren on too.
I guarantee you, everybody in the towns know who's that is. They know who the EMT is, because the EMT is also like the school teacher and the town preacher as well. and the man who stole the ambulance gets nothing but like he's banned from the bar for 2 days because it's such a small town.
Just a small
all know, right. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And they also have to,
I know all these little tiny Georgia towns. I've done a show in all of them.
They all work the same.
Yeah, I've done an open mic in all of these towns, and everybody knows everybody, and they're like, Bill, come over here. Bill, come over here. Like, Bill's the town coroner and the justice and the judge and our only lawyer. And you're like, oh, so he just does the whole gambit.
He does the circuit. Yeah, he was probably just working double shifts. You know what I mean? He was just at the strip club, and he was like, "Shit, I got to call." You know, and that's the thing when you're an EMT, you're just on call, right? Didn't have time to put his clothes back on. But the DUI, the thing that I think is funny is that they only mentioned getting arrested for a DUI. So is this just like, oh, you rascal, you, but we got to bring you in for something, you know?
Exactly. It's his cousin's. His cousin is the ambulance guy. Do you know what I mean? Like, they all know each other. And he's like, what's another DUI? He already has 7.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, small enough town, he probably doesn't even have to drive. That's probably why he took the ambulance. He doesn't have a car. He's got like 7 DUIs.
He's like, I got a flat tire on my bike and on my moped. He's the guy. He'll be the guy that you see the video later where they're trying to take their electric scooter on the highway.
Yeah. Well, I got to go. I got a job interview and I got to get there fast.
Right. And you're like, Bill, you're in the home. You got to stay in the home and play bingo.
Now, have you ever stolen a car? Like, not even like a car on the street, but like take a parent's car, like when you weren't supposed to or anything?
Yeah, I stole. I mean,
allegedly.
I don't think I ever stole a car. I snuck out a good bit, but no, I don't know if I ever stole one. I did my boyfriend in high school would take his. Well, I actually lost my virginity. My his school boyfriend's mom's minivan.
In a hot car? In a stolen vehicle? Damn.
Yeah, we heartboxed his Dodge Chrysler.
I also lost my virginity in a van, so kudos.
It was in a minivan. A van meant to transport children to soccer practice.
Well, it wasn't like a cargo van. It was the family van. Okay, good. But it was one of those ones with like a bubble top. You know, the conversion vans?
Yes, I love those.
It was like the original van life because they had curtains on the windows and they had piled like the 2 bucket seats and we had like it was pretty top of the line at the time. It had like one of those tiny tube TVs. Like
I was about to say that. Yeah, no, I remember I had one of my friends had one of those cars and I was jealous of her. That's it. I never stole a van. But true story, when we were at Bible study camp,
of course,
and my best friend Jenna, both of our moms had come to pick us up in the carpool, and Jenna and I obviously were best friends and meant to be sisters. So I shoved her underneath like our one of the back seats of our van, and my mom just pulled away, and she kept whispering to me like, "What are we gonna?" And I was like, "You're gonna be my sister forever. Just shut up, just keep quiet." And I remember like we got into our neighborhood and my mom got a call from her mom and she's like, I can't find Jenna anywhere. And I'm like, shut up. My mom is your mom now.
How old were you?
Stop crying. I mean, probably 7 or 8.
So you set your mom up for an accidental kidnapping?
Yes. But I was the kidnapper. Like Jenna's starting to cry. Her mom's worried and I'm this psychopath. It's like, sorry, Jenna's mom.
How desperate are you for friends? You're just kidnapping them left and right.
This is having I only had brothers, so I think it was desperate for a sister.
Yeah, so that's the easiest way to do it with duct tape and a good attitude.
I guess I don't know what my plan was. She just gonna live underneath the bench in my van for the rest of her life? I don't know.
Just slide in meals. I think that's safe. But your mom's just like this unknowing getaway driver, and all of a sudden there's a couple cop cars behind. You're like, well, that seems suspicious. And an ambulance drives by with a naked man. It's Georgia, baby. We're living.
My mom's like, God, you're gonna get me to go to jail one day. And I'm like, nah.
Yeah. So I mean, because you grew up in like a religious house, were you more, because I grew up Mormon and I was always much Yeah, well, I was the same. It seems like kind of the same thing. Always kind of more like acting out than committing like actual crimes. Was that a lot of
Yeah.
like your? Would you say that's characteristic of a lot of your behavior when you were like growing up in a church?
Yeah, we weren't like
Yeah,
no, I don't
yeah.
know.
If
It
that's
was
okay, if you were like well behaved, that also works. I was just curious if it was relative to my experience.
no, we would. I mean, we did normal kid stuff, but it wasn't. We weren't really bad. I mean, we were just we drank a lot.
Mhm.
Did you guys drink? Did you underage drink?
No, we smoked weed. Like weed, we had access to
Yeah.
weed before we had access to alcohol in my town. Just by happenstance. Like there just happened to be somebody that sold weed, and there wasn't somebody that we had like regular access to booze through.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. We were very, I mean, I don't know if it was the Catholic thing, but there was a lot of alcohol to be stolen in all the parents' cabinets and
All the
then
good
underneath
Catholics, right?
beds. Yeah, and inside the closet, hidden
Mhm.
everywhere. So I mean, I was drinking by 12.
You damn.
Yeah, it was
Well, I started
early.
smoking when I was 12, so it's not that far off.
Yeah.
Probably better for the. Did you do the whole thing where you would pour like water back into the liquor bottles or whatever just to cover it up?
100%. I can't drink bourbon to this day because I grew up in
Really?
Kentucky and like all of our friends' parents, right? Some of them worked for Brown Foreman and all these bourbon distributors and everything. So there was bourbon everywhere. So that's what we would chug from a water bottle in someone's parents' closet while their parents were gone taking out the trash, and
Oh yeah.
we threw a party for 4 minutes. And it still tastes. I mean, when you're chugging, even if it's Four Roses or something nice, when you're chugging bourbon.
Because that's the only way you know how to drink it when you're that age. You're like, I'm not going to eat today, and I'm going to
Oh,
chug this entire bottle so I get super wasted.
oh yeah. I mean, getting your stomach pumped was a rite of passage. Everybody did it.
Yeah, it's just like a sorority. It's like a sorority,
Yeah.
basically, at a young
Yeah,
age.
it was bad. God, we were just so thirsty. But other than that, I mean, we weren't that bad. Yeah, it was just I went to all girls Catholic high school. All the guys went to all boys Catholic high schools. So I don't know if it was like because you didn't get a lot of the flirting and the acting naughty in school, you had to do it all outside of school. So
Right.
we went pretty hard.
Yeah. Well, it's that classic kind of like if you hold somebody back from doing something, right, or tell them they
Mhm.
can't do something, they're just going to want to do it even more. That was always my problem too, like with church and stuff. It was like the more authority I had in my life, the more I wanted to like buck against it and kind of be like, you can't
Yes.
talk to me that way. I'm smart, even though I'm 10. I don't know anything about the world, but you
Yes.
can't tell me what to do.
Very much so. Yeah. And like I think we still I don't know if it was I I don't know if it's something about like I think we were still on that cusp of era of like it wasn't like I don't what I mean like I still grew up like my parents worked and we could just roam the neighborhood
Hmm.
and
Yes.
stuff. And
Yeah.
like we were I mean, we bike gang for life, cul-de-sac bike gang. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
On the
we were
pegs, just looking like a
right.
rock star.
Yeah, yeah, by the time you were 12, you were living on your own while your parents were going to work and everything. And like
Good.
I think we still had that kind of very much a sense of independence and your parents were just kind of like, all right, just come back alive.
Yeah.
And because before I like took off on this tour, I was nannying and I don't think these kids will ever live that life that I lived. I think that's totally over.
Where
Like
it's like more helicopter parenting and knowing where they are all the time and not being able
very
to just kind of
much.
free range and roam around.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe it's just the family I nannied for, but like this kind of hysteria of like every day they're reading some article about something, some
Mhm.
kind of danger and this and that, or maybe it's just because I'm nannying in Atlanta, but like I feel like maybe our generation ish kind of era was probably the last to like have some free roaming in the preteens.
Yeah, I could see that. I would think maybe more in like rural areas it wouldn't be as bad, but
Yeah,
it's more just a guess. Sweet.
yeah.
Well, all right. Let's do another article before we get into your story. This one, I mean, God, if people were afraid to get into therapy before, BetterHelp shared users' sensitive data with advertisers, says the FTC. Any first thoughts? Are you using BetterHelp now?
No.
just blew up your brain.
Yeah.
I gotta call Rhonda.
Right. No, I have learned. I'm tarot card. I'm getting just tarot card reading and crystals and Reiki from now on. The backwoods shit.
Yeah. I'm gonna interpret these cards the way I want to and live my life.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, I'm not surprised at all. Are they sharing patients like charts? Are they sharing their journal entries, or are they just sharing their demographics?
So it says including their mental health data.
Oh.
Isn't that so messed up? So it's like all of a sudden you start getting targeted ads on Facebook. Be like, Mother's Day's coming up. Do you need another reminder? Because you forgot the last 3 years in a row.
Right. Yeah.
It's a t-shirt that says, not this time, mama.
Right. They're like, Father's Day's coming up. Do you need a getaway to forget? That's fantastic. I honestly not surprised. I honestly am not worried about it. Mm-hmm. I have come to terms with the fact that all of our information is out there. And you know what? Nobody really gives a hoot about you. Mm-hmm. And you're part of a mass number that they're trying to collect. Yeah. And I'm like, if you want to find out listen to any podcast, I'll share everything. I don't know. I'm not sure it concerns me at all.
Not so much. I just thought anecdotally it would be fun of like, what is it that they're sharing with these companies and how is that going to reflect on what you start seeing on your phone and stuff? It'd be like, hey, remember that dog you lost 5 years ago? Time to adopt.
Does make sense. Oh, that is so messed up. That's targeting ads that they're going after.
Well, that's the thing is like, if you're using mental health data, just be like, well, I guess you obviously need more ads from prescriptions from pharmaceutical companies because you're messed up. Like now all of a sudden you get a level, like there's just like this person needs to be bombarded, which actually does trigger your social anxiety more because it's forcing you to be on social media more often. So it's just really this endless cycle.
Yeah. And like targeting like people with image issues, and they're like, ready for this fast ad diet, or like take this over the counter Ozempic pill or something like, oh, this is genius. And
you just get an ad that says you're looking fat today. Yeah. Like what?
Right.
This isn't even for anything.
Oh, this is genius. I mean, I'm going to get on there. I'm going to be like, do you have a hard time focusing on what matters? Try these new prescription glasses. I don't know. It doesn't even make sense. Yeah.
Fun. All right. Well, that'll do it for our dumb crimes this week. But I always tell people like if they're coming on the show, you know, if you want to share a story, obviously things are alleged. I don't know if that actually holds up in a court of law or not, but it can be something that you committed, witnessed, or something where the police were involved, mostly to kind of remind everybody that people just do dumb shit all the time, or you see something crazy and you're like, I can't believe that happened. So I don't know, is there anything that kind of like stirs up for you that you think is worth sharing?
Okay, I don't even think this is, well, I guess I was committing a crime. This is about to be disgusting and gross. And
Good.
you're
here for it.
It's not, you're not going to like it.
Okay.
You're going to regret having me on when
This is sponsored by BetterHelp.
Oh, you're going to need BetterHelp after you hear this. Just because it does involve a cop, and it's the only story that comes to mind. But again, I apologize up front for what I'm about to tell you.
We'll put a disclaimer on it.
Trust me. You're gonna regret this. So I have a tattoo on my upper inner right thigh, And it's a round brush, like a hairbrush. You know, the ones that go, it's like a cylinder and it goes all the way around with the little pricks. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, ironically near your pubic hair intentionally, or
Yeah, absolutely. And people and dudes on the beach, or anytime it's exposed, they'll come up to me and they'll be like, is that a vibrator? And then I get to tell them the truth, and I look them in the eyes and I go, no, this is actually a tribute to my mom, because when I was in college, poor little college kid, I didn't know all the woes of being a woman yet. I'm telling you, you're going to regret this story. And I called her, and she was a nurse in Kentucky. And I said, Mom, my vagina is on fire and it's melting. And she said, I can't look you in the eyes when I say this. And
I'll look away.
My mother, as being a medical nurse of the medical field, but also a Southern woman, was trying to figure out if it was a yeast infection or a UTI. And only one of them is itchy. So she goes, would you want to take a round brush up there and go to town?
What a phrase. What a phrase.
And I was like, can I do that? That sounds amazing. Is that okay for me to do as a human being? And she goes, no, but here's the medicine that you need. And so she diagnosed me that way. And so I was driving there, and I texting, speeding, everything else, run a red light, and I get pulled over. And the cop pulls me over. I'm like crying, and I'm like having a situation, right? And he pulls down the window, and I'm crying, and I'm just like, everything hurts. My vagina's on fire. I can't take a round brush up there, but I want to. And he was just like, okay, just go ahead. Please don't speak any more to me. I can't hear anything else.
Yeah, just all you have to do to any man is just start talking about lady stuff.
Right, but like literally the epitome of disgusting lady stuff. And he let me go. And I went and I got my monostat, and everything was peachy the next day. Years later, my sad story, my mom passed. And then years later, I got into comedy and was writing a sketch, and like wrote that scenario into a sketch, and it like ended up going to a bunch of film festivals and got some awards.
Who would have known your itchy vagina would have launched this amazing career?
I know. So obviously I had to get the tattoo, the round brush on my upper thigh. And so then when I'm on the beach or something, and some dude comes up, he's like, is that a vibrator? I get to tell them that story, and they slowly walk away.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a good deterrent, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless somebody just is attracted to somebody that's hilarious, and you're like, oh, that's rad. I was going to say that's really fun.
If somebody's attracted to that, I'd be like, you're a sick person with a lot of diseases.
Yeah, I think also the South is full of fun catchphrases. I think would you stick a round brush up there?
Would you like to stick a round brush up there?
I think that's t-shirt worthy, dude. I think
I should put that on a t-shirt.
Because it's very ambiguous. You don't even really know what that means. You could say that about the weather, Like you walk outside and be like, well, would you stick a round brush up there?
Yeah, I'd like to stick a round brush. Yeah. When the pollen starts hitting, when everything gets and you just go, it's round brush time. It's round brush season.
Flowers are in bloom.
Right. Yes.
It's round brush season. Now, with the interaction with the cop, like, did he actually try giving you a hard time, or were you just like so hysterical that he didn't even want to deal with it?
It was one of those. I mean, I was in Columbia, South Carolina. Columbia's not, it's South Carolina, and it's a mega town for South Carolina, but it's still the South.
Yeah.
And you acknowledge your privilege, but sometimes you just go, in this situation, I'm going to use it.
Yeah.
And I was just a young little blonde girl. And at first I think he did come up and tried to assert his authority. And then when I just started rambling about my melting vagina, it's just too much for him to handle.
It's like a full meltdown, like a nuclear plant.
He just is like, there's no way I'm going to write a ticket and hand it to this woman while she's wailing about, her parts disintegrating.
Honestly, write me the ticket. The paper might be good for a scratch. If I can. Please, can I just get one off the notepad?
I probably would have said that. I probably would have gone to that length. I mean, I wasn't letting up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have
So
you
I
ever have you ever been pulled over like otherwise? Like have you like gotten any like tickets or been in other like kind of weird like traffic situations with a cop?
was I ever, I mean, God,
Because
I'm sure
I
I
so like
have.
just personal anecdote, I had I was on my way to the Syracuse. I'm from Syracuse, New York, and usually when I go back home, I stay with my parents. I use their car, and I'll work at the Funny Bone there when I'm around. And I was on my way to the gig, and I went through a red light, quote unquote. It was yellow, and also recognizing my privilege when the cop pulled me over, the
Yeah.
guy was like, "Do you know what you did wrong?" I was like, "No, not really." He went through that red light. I was like, "Are you sure?" Because I'm pretty sure it was yellow, and I was
Holy
turned red.
shit.
And he's like, "You went through it." I'm like, "Okay, agree to disagree," And and I
He
explained,
let you say that?
yeah.
Holy shit.
I'm like,
Was this a
okay.
real cop?
Yeah. So he like lets me. He's like, okay. Well, I explained the situation. Be like, I'm not trying to give you a hard time, officer, but I have a show I have to be at 7:30. So if you do want to write me the ticket, can you please write it so that way I can get there on time? And he was like, "Is your record clean?" And I was just like, "Yeah, I think so." As far as I know, he goes back to the car. He comes back. He's like, "Do you know your license is suspended?" I'm like, no. He's like, well, I can't let you drive the car, so I'm gonna need you to get. Can somebody come get you? Can somebody come get the car? So I call my parents immediately. I'm like, I don't have time to explain. My license is suspended. I'm off like Old Hiawatha Boulevard or whatever. Please come get me. And I get so the guy's like, it was winter. He's like, can you? He's like, you want to sit in my car or whatever? I'm like, yeah. Can I sit up front? He's like, no, you can't sit.
Are you shitting me?
So,
Like, how was this cop not like, I'm taking you to jail right now?
I don't know, a nice smile and a can-do attitude and a little thumbs up, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I just try to be pleasant, I guess.
Why was your license suspended? Did you know?
Yeah, so the license was suspended because I moved to Colorado and I'd gotten new plates, but I changed my insurance. So my old insurance was still I never returned my New York plates. So my insurance was So the plates were still in circulation with my New York license uninsured. And after you have uninsured plates for 30 days, your license gets suspended. If you have plates, they have to be insured. So they suspended the license. So my dad comes to get me. And I'm in the back of a cop car, just kind of waving at him, like, "Hey, isn't this a bit of a pickle we're in, huh, Dad?" And he runs me to the gig. They didn't even check to see if I was in the building. I was hosting that weekend. The music, the classic, like,
Yes. Yeah.
is playing. I run onto the stage and just start doing a set, exasperated. And when I get there, I realize I left my phone in the back of the cop car. So I have to, the next day, go through all these back channels to try to get a hold of the cop who wound up meeting me after the Saturday shows. And he and his wife came to the Sunday shows. And I still run into that guy from time to time when I go back.
Sweet. I love that story.
I know.
You have a good time.
Yeah, he had a great time. I even talked to him about it a little bit while I was on stage, and it wound up working out great. But holy shit, like it was a really stressful period of time, as you can imagine.
I mean, the cop was like, you ran the red light, and you were like, "Are you sure?"
Yeah, I totally.
Mr. Officer, are you sure about that? Like totally emasculated him. Then he was like, "Yeah, I'm sure." And then he went and checked and your license was suspended and you still asked to sit up front. And he was like, "No, not today. Sorry, bucko." I mean, only in like, I guess Syracuse isn't that small, but
yeah, it's a smaller town outside of Syracuse. Like it's not directly in the city. So yeah, it was some small town stuff. Yeah, I mean, I recognize that other people might not have been able to get away with that in that situation, but it's unfortunately like I have always been that kind of person. I just try to see if I can get out of something before I admit any defeat. And I think he was going to let me go if it wasn't for the suspension.
Damn. Yeah, I mean, I've had some, anytime I can throw in, I mean, I've been pulled over, I had tail lights out, everything. Anytime I can throw in, I'm headed to a show and I'm late to a show. It's like, because I heard this trick. One of my friends, Plug Chapman from Atlanta, Georgia, told me this. They go, show a show flyer, even if it's like if you can just flash it at them, if it's not the right date, if you're like, I'm about to be late to the show, and you can show like something with your face on it, that's clearly, they'll be like, all right, go ahead. Like, I don't know if I don't know.
Are you Katherine Blanford? Holy shit. Can I get a picture?
I guess it's some kind of pressure you put on to be like, my life is depending on getting there or something. They're like, all right, go for it. But I've used that a couple.
I got to go sell some merch.
Right. Exactly. It's something that makes them feel like they are you're right. Like your life's about to change and it's in their hands. And it's like, just, let me go, officer. I promise I'll give back to the community.
Listen, I swear I'll distribute all of the 5 chicken tenders that I get from my paycheck.
Right.
I will pass this. I will pass this kindness on to others.
Yes, I give it to the homeless man. I promise, sir.
Yeah, exactly.
Something about a Lifetime movie.
Yeah. Sure, man. Well, thank you very much for joining the show. And thank you for sharing your story. I appreciated goofing with you for a little bit.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no doubt. So just tell everybody where they can find you and anything you want to plug.
Yeah. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok. I think it's all at It's Katherine Blanford. I'm on all of it. I have a podcast called Cheaties. People call them with their cheating stories. Cheater, cheaty, side piece, all of it. And and we find the humor in it. And find me on the road. I'm everywhere.
Yeah, I go see Katherine perform. She's literally one of the funniest people in the country right now. You'd be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't check her out when she's passing through. So
thanks, dog.
For all my upcoming dates, go to CoreyDavid.com. Check out all my socials. It's fake Corey David basically everywhere. Subscribe to the YouTube page and whatever podcast platform you like. We will be doing another live version of the show down in Albuquerque and in Santa Fe in April. At Dry Heat Comedy Club and with Wayward Comedy in Santa Fe. So check out the website if you want more details for that. We've already got a really fun lineup together. There's free donuts. And thanks for joining the show.
Thank you. Toodaloo.